Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamatsyaadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tamami सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ॐ समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ सर्ववेदान्त सिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम् So, here's my bookmark. So we completed 110 verse.
Jaji, we finished 109.
109, so 110. Okay, good, good. Yeah, I have my bookmark there, but I don't know whether I completed or not. Okay, thank you. The topic that we discussed last time, that was before the Yajna actually, was Maya, which I told you is a huge topic. It will come again and again. But so far what Bhagwan has pointed out to us is Maya is Paramesha Shakti. It is the inherent power of the Lord. It is beginningless. Why? Because Bhagwan is beginningless. So if Bhagwan is beginningless, Maya also is beginningless. Is there a difference between Maya and Bhagwan? Yes. Maya ends, Bhagwan doesn't end. Maya ends in knowledge because Maya is also avidya. So at the totality, level of the totality, level of Ishvara, it is known as Maya. And the reason it is known as Maya is because Maya is under the control of Ishvara. And at the individual level, at our level, at the level of the Jiva, it is known as Avidya because we are under the control of Avidya. So we are ignorant of our own higher nature, of our own real nature. That's why we are considered as being under the control of Avidya, because we go on functioning in this world not knowing our real nature. So we are functioning in this world out of ignorance. Out of ignorance of what? I think, oh, I'm not ignorant. I know so many things. I know so many subjects. No, I am ignorant of the fact that I am actually that Satchitananda, but I consider myself to be this body, mind, and intellect, and I go on functioning in this world. So that's why it is avidya. But Ishvara, Maya being under his complete control, he knows his real nature. He knows that. That's why it is called Maya and called avidya at our level. And what is the nature of this Maya? It is Trigunatmika. Trigunatmika, it is of the nature of the three gunas, which we will be seeing today in this, and very opportune time that Swamiji also explained the three gunas. So that's great. And Karyanumeya Sudhyaiva Maya. So it by itself, Maya cannot be never known, cannot be shown, but it is known from its karya. Karya is effect. So it is anuman. Karyanumeya means it is inferred from its effects. And that's why we have to learn the effects of the three gunas to know nobody that even Bhagavan Shankaracharya cannot show us sattva. He cannot show us rajas. He cannot show us tamas. Nobody can show us that, but he will point out the indicators, the effects. So when you see this effect, it is coming from sattva. When you see this effect, it is coming from rajas. When you see the third kind of effect, it is coming from tamas. So that's why Maya is also known as Karyanumeya, means that which anumana. So inference, that which can be inferred from its effects is Maya. So Maya directly can never be known, or it can be known, sorry, but it can never be perceived, can never be seen. Okay. Yaya Jagat Sarvam Idam Prasuyate, and it is Maya which projects this entire world. Swami Vidyaranya in his chapter 6 of the Panchadashi beautifully compares Maya. He starts off the chapter with a canvas, just a plain canvas, okay, white canvas. And on that canvas, he says, the painter paints a picture, right? So what he compares this, he says the canvas is Atma, that Satchitananda, clear, nothing. And on that, the painter is Maya. And Maya paints this world on that canvas. That is what Maya has done. And the effect of Maya is this world. These differences that I see is the effect of Maya. That is how he compares it very beautifully. And then, of course, in the end, he says that the one who can see the canvas, the one who can see the Satchitananda, negating the world, falsifying the world, understanding that the world or the painting has no legs to stand on without Satchitananda or without canvas. Can a painting happen without a canvas? Can you just paint? Can I just paint here like in air, thin air? No, I need a canvas. So the painting has no legs to stand on without the canvas, and the world has no legs to stand on without Satchitananda. So this is what the seeker has to ultimately get it, that this world is illusory. And so Yayas Jagat Sarvam Idam Prasuyate. Prasuyate creates, is delivery, prasuti, that's delivery. So she delivers this world to us. That's what her nature is, her job is. And then it is said it's very hard to understand whether Maya is existing or non-existing, because if you say it is existing, then it is not, but if it is existing, then does it have an independent existence of its own? Like if you say the painting is existing, does the painting have any existence without the canvas? Can a painting come about without the canvas? No. So you say, okay, the painting is not existing, but if it is not existing, I do see the painting. So that's why it cannot be described whether it is existing or non-existing. it cannot be described as existing because it has no independent existence, and we cannot say that, oh, it is not existing because I experience it. I experience the world. I experience hot, cold, joy, sorrow, etc., etc. And so it is, and is it made up of parts? Yeah, if you look at the world, it's all parts only. But if you look at the canvas, or if you look at Satchitananda, there are no parts. So it cannot be described as having parts, or cannot be described as not having parts. Most wonderful it is, and beyond description in words. It cannot, though there is a whole lot of description written on Maya, it still is called as anirvachaniya. Anirvachaniya is one description of Maya, cannot be really described. Because is it existing? No. Is it not existing? No. Is it part? No. Yes, no. Everything is like yes and no, yes and no. So that's why it is a difficult concept. Now we are in verse 110. So how do I get over this Maya? Shuddha. Shuddhadvaya Brahma Vibodhanasya Sarpa Brahmorajju Vivekato Yatha Rajastamasattvamiti Prasiddha Gunastadiya Pratithe Swakaryehi. By realization of the pure non-dual Brahman, Maya can be destroyed just as the illusion of the snake is removed by the discriminative knowledge of the rope. Its gunas are rajas, tamas, and sattva, distinguished by their respective functions. So can this Maya, which has projected this world, can it end? And I already told you that is the difference. Bhagwan is, Ishvara is beginningless, Maya is beginningless. Then what is the difference? Ishvara doesn't end, Maya ends. And how will Maya end? Maya will end by knowing Ishvara, by knowing that non-dual Brahman. How will this painting, how will the painting end for me? Is by understanding that there is a canvas behind it which is supporting the painting. Or the movie example we give. We see all these different roles being played in the movie, and we get carried away with that movie. But if our attention shifts to the screen, which is supporting all those figures and actions and etc., then that movie will be negated for us. What happens is, the problem is that we can never shift our attention from the world. As long as the senses are extroverted, they're looking outside, and they're actually cursed by the creator to be like that. That's what Kathopanishad tells us, that it's a manufacturing defect. The creator, when he made the senses, he made them extroverted. He just made them like that. Now what to do? So because they're extroverted and because their attention is constantly on the world, they cannot see that Satchitanand Brahma. And that is the whole Purushartha or self-effort of a spiritual seeker, is to how can I see it? By making the mind introverted. So senses, I can never make them introverted. That is an impossible task. So don't even try. But the mind which is controlling the senses can go both ways. Mind can go out, mind can go in. Because mind is in between the intellect and the senses. So, and the mind is the control over the senses. And that's why we have this Shama and Dhamma, these two qualifications for a seeker. And so the more we turn the mind inwards, the more our attention will shift from this world, or will shift from the painting onto Satchitananda or onto the canvas, whichever way you take it. Okay. And the example, again, the most favorite example in Vedanta, Bhagwan's Sarpa and Rajju, rope and snake. So how will it'll come again and again. So you cannot forget that. How will you get rid of that snake in your mind? It's only in your mind, it's not there, is by seeing the rope. is by seeing the road. There's no other way. So it's the knowledge. What is being said is you have to have knowledge. There's no action that is. See, if there was a real snake, then killing it would be an action. You can remove a real snake by killing it. There is no real snake. It's only in your mind. How do you remove it? You can't kill it. You have to have the knowledge. So knowledge alone can give you that liberation. And then Prasiddha, what is one thing famous or well known about Maya is that it is Trigunatmika. 3 gunas she has, which Brahman doesn't have. Brahman is beyond the 3 gunas. So she has the 3 gunas. So look at the effects and then go to the gunas. And what Swami Ishananji said, very, very profound. He said, choose to remain in sattva. That's a very important word. See, we have already seen in this very book, Bhagwan Shankaracharya has said that this is a very, very rare birth. He started off this text saying that understand that human birth is extremely rare. Okay, and the reason that it is rare and the reason that the human body is considered as precious, what is precious, which is not available everywhere. You know, if you say precious stones, we don't call an ordinary stone on the road or rock precious because it's available in plenty. Precious is, which is very few when those precious stones are there, diamonds or emeralds or whatever, they're very few. You cannot just find them walking here and there. Same way, this human body is very rare. And because of its rarity, it is very precious. And the reason it is precious is because only the human body has the option of choice. We have choice to do, to not to do, or to do something else. This choice no other body has. So animal body, plant body, to forget it. Animals do not have the choice. They live by instinct alone. And that's why Swamiji said that choose. So to choose, you have to know all 3. To make a choice between any 2 things. That's the reason we're doing this discrimination between self and not self, and both are being explained. We are not being told that, you know, just choose the self. Why should I choose the self? Okay, let me explain to you the not self. Let me explain to you the self. You have the human body, you have the brain which is on top. You decide, do you want to go with the not self or do you want to go with the self? So that's why this Rajas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas will now be explained. So it is up to us to choose where I want to be. And first thing to determine is where I am right now. I've already told you, out of the 3 gunas, no one guna can go to 0. That is not possible. Okay, so all 3 gunas will always be there, but there will always be a predominance of something. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to have a predominance of sattva. Now, why should I have sattva? Why can't I have rajas? Okay, no problem. Let us see what the effects are, and then you choose. You choose. So before you make the choice, you have to do self-evaluation. You have to see where you are and then move from there. Okay, and that's why now these 3 gunas are being explained, and Bhagwan starts off with Rajoguna. Vikshepa Shakti Rajasa Kriyatmika Yata Pravritti Prasruta Purani Ragadayosya Prabhavanti Nityam Dukkadayo Ye Manaso Vikaraha. Rajas has projecting power, Vikshepa Shakti. Activity is its very nature. From it, the initial flow of activity has originated. From it, mental modifications such as attachment and grief are also continuously produced. So this Vikshepa Shakti, let's understand this. See, Maya has got 2 powers. I've talked about us having 2 powers, right? We have Kriya Shakti and we have Jnana Shakti. And unless one is the power of knowledge and one is the power of acting, unless both are together, action result cannot come. I have to have the knowledge to do a particular act, then the particular result will come. I can have knowledge. If I don't act, no result. I can act, I'm willing to act, but I have no knowledge of how to do it, no this thing. So just like we have these two powers, Maya has got two powers. And the two powers of Maya are, one of them is Vikshepa Shakti. And the other one is Avrana Shakti. Okay, Vikshepa Shakti is the power of projection. And Avrana is a veiling, covering. So Avrana Shakti is the power to veil. Now, Rajas is Vikshepa Shakti, Tamas is Avrana Shakti. So Tamas will be talking about, but now let us talk about this Vikshepa Shakti. So because the first word is Vikshepa. What is Vikshepa? Vikshepa is a modification. That is the meaning, Vikshepa. It is a projection. The best example is dream. What is happening in dream? Dream, two things are happening. See, one is there is a non-apprehension. Okay, so there is Avrana Shakti. Tamas is there. Why Tamas is there? Because dream happens only when we go to sleep. So that sleep is Tamas, is representation of Tamas. And while we are asleep, we are not aware of our waking state. We are not aware of who I am in the deep sleep state. And then there is a projection. Okay, Vikshepa Shakti. So this Vikshepa is this projection, which is a misapprehension. Why is it a misapprehension? Because whatever I see in dream, is it ever real? When I wake up, don't I know that that was just an illusion? Whatever it was, whether I won a lottery, whether I lost money, whether I killed somebody, whether I got a award, whatever it was, once I wake up, I know. So that's why it is misapprehension. It is wrong projection. It's not a correct projection. And that is what dream, when you understand dream, which we all know and we have dreamt at some time or other in our life, you will understand this Vikshepa Shakti. Rajasa Kriyatmaka. Rajas is of the nature of activity. Gurudev has given a very good example of the fan to explain these three gunas. See, we in India, we used to have the ceiling fan. So when the ceiling fan is at 0 speed, so it is not turned on, that is tamas. Okay. And rajas is, you put it just at, say, speed 1 or 2. Okay. Just a little speed. The blades are moving, but they're moving so slowly that you can tell whether that particular fan has got 3 blades or 4 blades. Most fans have, I think, 3 blades, but some may have 4. But when it is moving at that small, little speed, the blades can be seen. That is rajas. And then when you turn it on to 6, which is the maximum speed, it will move at great speed, but you will not be able to distinguish the blades. You will not know whether it is 3 blades or they will just like, you'll see it like one motion. That is sattva. So sattva is unactivity. It is called as unactive. We'll be coming to that as well. This is activity, kriyatmaka. So anytime we are doing an activity, right now, this is rajas. That I'm speaking is coming out of rajas. Okay. What determines whether this rajas is backed by sattva or tamas? What will determine is the subject matter that I'm speaking. That, because see, sattva and tamas they are not going anywhere. Just because I'm in rajas right now, that doesn't mean that sattva and tamas have gone to 0. It hasn't. They haven't. Tamas is the body that I'm using, the vocal cords that I'm using, they are tamasic. The body is tamasic, predominantly tamas. So tamas is also there. Rajas is speaking. This is the main thing that is going on right now, speaking. And the subject matter is sattva, sattvic. But what is there a predominance of right now is rajas, because there's constant speaking. Okay, so that's why kriyatmika, it is of the nature of action. From it, the initial flow of activity has originated. So anytime any action is being done, so seeing is their action, talking, walking, running, hearing, even listening is an action. Why? Because it is being done by the senses. It is being done by the body. So listening also is an action. So whenever there is action, know that there is rajas behind it. Understand that there is rajas behind it. Okay. And then the mental modification, attachment and grief come from rajas as well. These are the negative qualities. Next verse, he's going to elaborate on this. Attachment and grief. So raga and dvesha. Is this thing dukhadayo ye manaso. So the agitations that are caused in the mind are because of rajas. That is what is to be remembered. If your mind is agitated for anything, okay, you're worried about your family, you're worried about something, you're worried whether you'll get a job or not, you're worried whether you'll pass an exam or not, whatever kind of agitation is there is caused by rajas. And when we say agitation in Vedantic parlance, agitation also includes happiness. If you're extremely happy about something, that also is caused by rajas, because it is an happiness because of. Suppose I get a reward, an award, a lottery, whatever if I get, and then the mind is happy. It is vikshepa. The mind from its peaceful state has moved into happiness, has moved into grief. So both ways, it is origination is from rajas. Origin is rajas. This is what rajas is. We have to understand the effects of these gunas, because the gunas can never be shown. These are the effects. So once we know the effects, when things are happening to us, when we want to self-evaluate, at that time we have to think, what am I in? What guna I am in? My mind is agitated. That means this is coming out of rajas. That I'm feeling very sleepy. I'm feeling very tired. I want to postpone things to tomorrow. What is that coming out of? Tamas. I want to study. I would like to attend the satsang. I want to make sure that, you know, I do a certain amount of reading in every day, coming out of sattva. Okay. Now, next one. See, Rajoguna creates agitation. Gurudev has written in the mind. Due to these mental, the last paragraph I'm reading, objectively we act in the world, and subjectively we experience desires, passions, lust, and consequently joys and sorrows. Because desires, passions, and lust, desires when fulfilled, there'll be joy. When not fulfilled, there'll be sorrow. So from desire arises all these other things. Now let's see all the ones separately. काम क्रोधो लोभदम्भाद्यसूया अहङ्कारेर्ष्या मत्सराद्यास्तु घोराः धर्मायेते राजसा पुंप्रवृत्तिः यस्मादेषा तद्रजो बन्धहेतुः. Desire, anger, greed, hypocrisy, arrogance, jealousy, egoism, envy, etc. These are the dreadful attributes of rajas from which the worldly tendencies of man are produced. Rajas is therefore the cause for bondage in life. So this is how, this is the final result, is how rajas is causing bondage. So the first thing is desire, and krodha is next, anger. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, Bhagavan says, Kama Esha, Krodha, Esha. This is what Bhagavan has used word, because Arjun asks, what is it that drives a man to do wrong, to do papa? The question is, Arjun says, if we are primarily that Satchitananda principle, that pure self, but we see that men means men and women included, people are driven to do wrong. People are driven to do papa, driven to do sin. So what is it that makes them do that? Bhagavan says, Kama esha, krodha esha. Means what? He doesn't say kama cha, krodha cha. He doesn't say desire and anger. He says this desire, this anger, which tells us that desire and anger are two sides of the same coin. They are one and the same. The original thought is a desire. That desire, when it doesn't get fulfilled, converts into anger. So the original this thought, the incorrect thought is this desire, and extreme desire. Now, doesn't mean that we should not have any desires, but when that desire goes into a fanatic, search for something, like I have to have this, and without this I cannot live. That sort of desire, when it comes and it doesn't get fulfilled, it will naturally lead to anger. It does. And that's what, therefore, desire and anger are not two different things. They're one thing only. That's why Bhagwan has said in chapter 3, he will say, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha. This Kama, this Krodha. Means both are this only. They both are the same. So here, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, greed. Greed also is another facet of desire, because what happens is desire, it'll either get fulfilled or it won't get fulfilled. If it doesn't get fulfilled, it is leading to anger. If it gets fulfilled, it is leading to greed, because, oh, I got this, now I want more. So therefore, desire, lobha and anger, they are desire only. Lobha and anger are desire only. They are just children of desire. Desire fulfilled, desire unfulfilled. Unfulfilled is anger, fulfilled is lobha, which is greed. Dambha, hypocrisy. We have seen this in chapter 3, those who studied with me. Adambitvam, Bhagwan said. One of the virtues that needs to be developed for a spiritual seeker is this non-pretentiousness. When we pretend to be something which we are not, when we pretend to have something which we don't have, whatever kind of, as it is, original pretentiousness we are doing is that I am the body. That pretentiousness is there. Now that we cannot help. We got born with it. But on top of that, we are pretending. I'm pretending to be rich. I'm pretending to be beautiful. I'm pretending to be intelligent. I'm pretending to know so many things. So that pretentiousness should be avoided. And it is coming from rajas. Extreme, you will, once you come to know these gunas, na, it is but natural that we have to, actually it is meant only, even Swami Shwananji said, these gunas, it shouldn't be, oh, you're rajas, oh, you're tamas, you're this, it is not meant for you. It's meant for me. Like what am I going through right now? But you will start understanding other people's behavior, and you will know that this is coming out of this guna. And at some point in our spiritual evolution, it will make us more compassionate. That what we will, and this is how Swamijis understand people. They know that, this is not, this person has not made a mistake. It's guna, his gunas, his or her gunas have pushed him to do it. So they become forgiving. So this is why we should understand this. Why should I understand this? First of all, it is for my own evolution. Like Swamiji said, we should choose to remain in sattva, because Satchit Ananda Brahman is beyond sattva. So until you reach sattva, you cannot even think of going beyond. So that's why we have to reach sattva. But it will also at some point make us understand why the other person is behaving in a particular way. Because this is the gunas, this is a push of the gunas, and it's a push of the vasanas. You come with vasanas which are sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. Please understand. And that vasana is creating a thought. So a sattvic vasana will create a sattvic thought, rajasic, tamasic. And then that push of so the stronger the vasana, the stronger will be the push. So if it's a strong sattvic vasana, it'll push you into this knowledge. It'll push you into reading. It'll, push you into, your mind will become calm. You'll have more faith, etc., etc. When it is rajasana, it's like your whole life is a to-do list. If there is no to-do, then that's it. You're lost. Like, what do I do now? People like that, I'm telling you. There are people who go to other people's house, they start cleaning the house. You're like, why are you doing this? Please sit. No, they can't sit. I'm telling you, this is for real. They cannot. Let me wipe that counter. Let me do your dishes. Your sink is too full. They can't sit. And a person who cannot sit, how will he study? This spiritual knowledge, how will he study? He can't. Number, then asuya, jealousy. Jealousy also comes out of desire. I desired this and I didn't get it, but my neighbor got it. So now I'm jealous of the neighbor, of the other person. So asuya is coming from there. Ahankara, ego. If I get it, then I get ego. Once Guruji had said, people walk with the dogs. Look at my dog. That also is giving ego. My grandchild. So ahankara, it's all matsara, jealousy. So all these are ghoraha, ghora, terrible, negative. These are all negative attributes, dreadful attributes. Ghoraha, dreadful. But dreadful means negative. And the reason Gurudev is calling them dreadful is because they're binding us. They bind us, and there is never a physical bondage. But I told you the bondage is to the cycle of sansar, this birth and death sansar. This is where it's bonding us. So pum is humans. So pum pravritti. So it is. These are the reasons for action. See, when a desire arises, it prompts me to act now, because I have a desire to get a job. Now I'm going to make my resume. I'm going to go interviews. I'm going to look at the website, right? So desire is prompting us into action. And when there is a strong desire, then there'll be strong action. Proportionate to the desire will be the intensity of action. How much I want to rise up above the, up the corporate ladder, then I'll work even more harder, right? I'll work harder than the other people. So they prompt us into action. And the law of karma is that it will give result. Action has no choice but to give result. And then the one who is Rajasic thinks I acted and I got the result. So he's enjoying. And then that result is creating another vasana. And that's how that result, action and result, is binding him into this cycle of birth and death, which is sansara. Okay. And therefore, yasma desha tadrajo bandha hetu. This is how it becomes hetu, purpose. Prayojana. Hetu is prayojana, or purpose. This is the purpose of bondage. What is the purpose? Starting with desire. So there is a desire. Rajas is producing desire. Rajasic vasanas are producing rajasic desire in the mind. Depending on the intensity of that desire, there will be the intensity of action. Desire fulfilled will lead to greed, and desire unfulfilled will lead to jealousy. No, not jealousy, anger. Then the unfulfilled desire will lead to jealousy as well, because I didn't get it and somebody else got it. So there is jealousy. And the fulfilled desire will lead to pride, ahankara, right? It will lead to pride. I got it, I did it, and I got it. And all this, the person is not realizing is that it is binding me. It is binding me to the cycle of birth and death, to the cycle of sansar. And therefore, Rajas becomes a source of bondage. We saw Swamiji told us also that Sattva also binds, but we'll see how. We'll see how, and we'll also see how we can. So the way to come out of the Rajasic bondage is to develop more and more sattva. The way to come out of tamasic bondage is to develop rajas, and from rajas you move into sattva. Swamiji also said that from tamas it is not possible to move into sattva. It's like you're missing one rung of the ladder. So from tamas you come into rajas, from rajas you come into sattva. Now tamoguna is described.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Just a question. If your nature is rajasic, how can you choose sattva?
Your nature is rajasic, but choice is there, no? Purushartha is there, right? I may have been born into a poor family, but I have the choice to work hard and become rich, don't I? I have the choice to get an education. I have that choice. Because the choice is given to the human mind. You don't have to succumb to that rajasic tendency. That is what Purushartha is. What is Purushartha? Purushartha, in short, is going against the tendencies, against the vasanas. Of course, if your vasanas are sattvic, then you go with the vasanas. But once you come to know that your vasanas are, your tendencies are rajasic or tamasic, then you try as a spiritual seeker. See, one who is not a spiritual seeker doesn't even know this sattva, rajas, tamas. He is just born like that, and he and she has been acting like that and will continue to act. That is what differentiates us. We are now in the mission. We are now studying this. So it is up to us. We come to know that we have a choice. There is always a choice. Always. So we choose, we go against the vasanas. That is purushartha. Self-effort, it is called. Self-effort. How do you put effort? See, if I'm walking and the wind is on my back, hardly any effort is required for me, right? The wind itself is pushing me forward. Or I'm cycling, say. The wind itself. But when the wind is coming from the front, then I have to put in extra effort. So when I have this rajasic or tamasic vasana, it is like a wind coming in my face and I'm trying to walk or cycle. So I have to put in extra effort. So the one who has these tendencies should be putting in extra effort. If they want this knowledge. So that big if is always there. Otherwise, you can continue to live like that, agitated, one day happy, one day sad, worried, fearful. Fear is arising out of rajas. Fearful, with this desire, will it be fulfilled? Will it be fulfilled? Will this happen? Will this happen? Will I? So constantly, do you want to live in that? Or do you want to live in a peaceful state of mind, with a peaceful state of mind? That's your choice. Okay? Esha vrittirnama tamo gunasya shaktiryayavastava bhasate saisha nidanam purushasya sansrutehe vikshepa shakte pravanasya hetuhu. The veiling power, avriti, is the power of tamas, which makes things appear to be other than what they actually are. It causes man's repeated transmigration and initiates the action of the projecting power, vikshepa. So this is the second power of Maya. I told you Maya has two powers, Avrana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. Avrana Shakti is arising from tamas. Avrana is a veiling. So it's like there is a, say, just a nylon. It is not, complete darkness. It's like a nylon curtain. So behind that curtain, there is something, but it is not very clear. See, when you walk into a room, and suppose if there's complete darkness in that room, there's no light at all, you will not even see the rope. You will not even project it to be a snake. You won't see anything. It's a completely dark room. This projection happens when there is dim light. There has to be slight light, but not fully bright light. If there is full bright light, you walk into the room, you will see the rope as the rope. There's no question of projection because the room is well lit. The problem happens when it is neither well lit nor it is completely dark. So in that dim light, when you walk in, you see something coiled in the room and then you project. So first tamas starts acting and then rajas. Rajas cannot act unless there is tamas. That's why it is said here that the power of tamas which makes things appear to be other. So first the power of tamas comes into play. First is the dim light. Then that dim light is what is projecting. If we go to the example of dream, first you have to fall asleep. When you're in the waking state, that's daydreaming. Forget that. That is different. But if you're awake and turning and tossing in bed, will you dream? Will you get a dream when you're awake? You don't get a dream. You have to go into that tamas. So tamas has to come first and then the projection happens. So first tamas and then rajas. So this veiling happens first. And because of the veiling, because I can't see clearly what is on the other side, then I start projecting different things. Oh, is that a statue there or is that a person standing there? And then it can go on. Gurudev is so very, not only do you see the snake, suddenly you hear the rattling also now. Suddenly now you start, Then you, the tail is really moving. That also then you start seeing. And then the hissing. And then you see, with Gurudev describing, he says, it's not just seeing the snake. Then it'll start rattling. And next, oh my God, it's now coming to bite me. So this misapprehension can go in great degrees because you're not seeing the original thing clearly. That is what is happening to us actually, because we are not seeing the canvas. I told you, because we are not seeing that Satchit Ananda. Now this whole world is projected, and now it's endless. The world is real. The world is giving me happiness. This man said yes, said this to me. That means he wanted to insult me only. That man didn't look at me, never even said hello. That means he purposely he did it to insult. Then he did, and it'll go on building. Because original only you've made the mistake. So it is, we have to control. That's why the mind has to be controlled. A sattvic mind is a controlled mind. Rajas and tamas is like a very dull mind. And then because of this dullness, these projections happen. And when the projections happen, they then tend to bind you. They tend to make you act, because you see the snake, now you want to kill the snake. So there's that misapprehension. You see the world, you desire things, you think that thing is other than you, so you want it. Then you want it, then you have to act for it. So all these things happen because of this thing. So it causes man's repeated transmigration, because as long as you don't see that supreme reality, you will go on getting birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. Okay, so this is how tamas binds. Just the second last paragraph on that, I've underlined it. When the rope is not recognized as a rope, man suffers from the misconceptions projected by his own mind that it is a serpent. And when Gurudev describes, he describes that. The first it is a serpent, then it's a rattlesnake, then the tail is moving, then I hear the rattling. I heard it, and then I saw its fangs. I saw that also. I saw all this goes on and on and on. Okay. Now, the next verse is, there is a tune, but I should kind of catch it. I'll just go prose. Pradnyavanapi panditopi chaturopi atyanta sukshma arthadruga vyalidhastamasa naveti bahuda sambodhitopi sputam भ्रान्त्यारोपितमेव साधु कलयत्या लम्बते तद्गुणान् हन्तासौ प्रबला दुरन्ततमसा शक्तिर्महत्या वृत्तिः. That is the meter there. Even the wise and the learned and those who are proficient in the vision of the supremely subtle meaning of the scriptures are overpowered by tamas and cannot comprehend truth, even though it is clearly explained in various ways. They consider as real what is simply superimposed by delusion and attach themselves to its effects. Alas, how powerful is the veiling power of dire tamas. Here, Pradnyavanapi and Panditopi, these two words you will hear in Bhagavad Gita, and there they actually, Bhagwan uses them for the realized masters. But here, it is not realized masters. Here, Bhagwan is talking about the very intelligent, highly educated people. So, the person could be a highly judge sitting on the Supreme Court bench, a very, very successful, whatever, engineer, doctor, surgeon, whatever in his field, CEO, CFO of the company. So these are the people that Bhagwan is talking about here, not realized masters. Because for a realized master, they can never get overpowered by tamas, because they have realized, they have transcended sattva as well. So then tamas cannot ever catch them. So if tamas is catching these people, that's why this Pradnyavanapi and Panditopi, Chaturopi, those are very intelligent, Chatura, very intelligent. So this is all intelligence in the material world, not in the spiritual world. These people also they cannot comprehend the truth. There are many people think I'm extremely intelligent, and that's why Bhagwan Shankaracharya, in many of his in many places in his commentaries, he has said that even scholarly people who know Sanskrit, who know the language, they can read the scriptures, but just by reading you cannot understand it. That's why Shravanam presupposes a live guru. That's why the first thing to understand these scriptures is Shravanam. And Shravanam means listening, and it is not listening to YouTube or CDs or pen drives. It's a Shravanam from a live guru. That is what is extremely essential. Afterwards, as a backup, you can listen to other things. But if you think that what is the necessary for a live person, I can just listen to YouTube. Now YouTube is flooded with it. I can just listen to YouTube. You're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to get anywhere. Because Shastra herself has said it. Shruti herself has given this Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam Marga, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So if Shruti has said it, then don't think that you are more clever than Shruti, that, oh, what is Shruti saying? You know, I will listen to YouTube and I'll realize. No, you will not. You can never realize that. So he says that these people are also deluded. I mean, look at Arjun. If you look at Bhagavad Gita, Arjun got deluded, and Arjun was a highly intelligent, highly, prince, high education. So imagine his caliber of intelligence, valor, and he got deluded. This is what he's saying here. So that's why this Prajna, Vanapi, Panditopi, Chaturopi is all in the material world. So when we are extremely, sometimes, intelligence itself becomes an obstacle in this getting this knowledge, because what the intelligent person does, the intellect does, is nitpick. How is this, how is that? There is less faith. Faith is at the level of the mind, and what is required is faith. And therefore one of the essential qualities is purity of mind. It is never in any book is it said that you have to be a PhD, you have to have great intelligence, but every scripture says you have to have a pure mind. Doesn't even talk about intellect. Doesn't even talk. So as long as that purity is there at the level of the mind, that purity will give you a lot of faith, and that on the basis of that faith, you will be able to transcend this sansar, as per what Shruti says. But when you have this intellect, how did that happen? How come that happened? How come that? Then you can never go beyond. Okay. So this, as you see his style, there's like 1 meter, and then he changes the meter, and it's kind of a concluding verse. So this is what he says: alas, how powerful is the veiling power of dire Tama. This is all he's saying, is that in Samarth Ramdas, I've told you about Samarth Ramdas, there's a text called Das Bodh which he has written. There he calls these type of people Padat Murkha. Padat means highly educated, but Murkha, foolish. These are the people that are being described here. Padat Murkha. They think they are very intelligent. I have studied so much. I know so much Sanskrit. I know so much. I've read so much. I've attended so many camps. They think they are intelligent, but still they are veiled by tamas, because tamas is very, very powerful. Now here he gives the signs of tamas. Abhavana va viparita bhavana sambhavana vipratipatirasyaha sausargayuktam na vimuchanti dhruvam vikshepa shakti kshapayatya jastram. Absence of correct judgment or contrary judgment, lack of definite belief and doubt, certainly these never leave one who has any connection with this veiling power. Also, the projecting power gives endless trouble. So there are 4 words that are used here. Abhavana. Abhavana is absence of right judgment. Viparita bhavana. Viparita is contrary. Viparita, opposite. So contrary judgment. Then there is sambhavana, which is a want of definite belief in the existence of a thing. And then there is asambhavana. Sambhavana and okay. It's a sorry, it's not sambhavana, it's a sambhavana. And then viparati patti. So this is doubt. Okay. So I was thinking about how to explain this verse, and what came to my mind is Arjun in chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. See, now let's see Arjun, what all Arjun did and how all these four applied to him there. So first, abhavana. Abhavana is what? Absence of right judgment. What did Arjun do? He looked at the enemy and he thought they are my relatives. So there was absence of right judgment. See how tamas, I told you, is in tamasic state, right? So those of you who are studying Bhagavad Gita with me, think about Arjun. So first thing, he should have looked at them as enemy. He said, this is my grandfather, this is my guru. So there was abhavana. Then there was viparita bhavana, opposite bhavana. What bhavana was there? He was a kshatriya. He should have been waging war. What did he say? Let me run away. So opposite. Instead of waging war, which was the correct thing to do, now he has viparita bhavana. He wants to run away from the war. Viparita bhavana. Then asambhavana. Asambhavana is want of definite belief. So what happened to him? He had never lost a war in his life. And what happened to him there on the battlefield? He lost all confidence in himself. He lost, right? So his belief, whether he was doing right or whether he was doing wrong, he couldn't judge. He didn't have correct judgment. Am I doing the right thing by killing my guru and my grandfather? Am I doing the right thing? Is it correct to kill guru and grandfather? So that correct judgment, that belief was shaken. He didn't believe that killing them is correct. And then the last is this vipratipatti, so which is the doubt. So there was a doubt in his mind, which he will now say in chapter 2, should I wage war or should I not wage war? See how tamas, how beautifully Bhagavan Shankaracharya has explained. And when you study that simultaneously, you actually see the example there in Arjun. You understand this? So this is what happens. So that's why, you know, those who are sattvic people, like you see that in Swamiji's, you know, once they say something, that is it. They never say, oh, I'm sorry I said that. They never say like that, you know, because there is no doubt in their mind. There's so much predominance of sattva that whatever comes out of their mouth is correct, is right. And they never go back on their word. We may think that how this is possible, how did he say this, how did Swamiji say that? We may think that, but Swamiji is never think like that. So when there is a predominance of sattva, I'll tell you, there will be less doubt. We'll talk about this a little more next time. You know, when we have doubts and when people think, should I do this, should I, or how much did some people, bapre bap, my cousins are there, you know, they think like till the cows come home. And my cousin thought, and then ultimately she bought a ticket and came from stupid Toronto to Vancouver, and then she paid more at the last minute. Are Baba, I was telling a book. There was a wedding. I said, just book your ticket. No, she thought, and then ultimately she said, oh, you know what? I had to pay extra money. I said, you should have booked. So it is coming out of tamas. Doubt, when you know, some people, a correct decision they will make immediately. That is sattva. Otherwise, then there is doubt. I will stop here. We'll look at this verse a little bit more next time. Are there any questions?
Two questions. One is CCMT have been promoting so many courses with videos and everything. Is that considered with the guru or not guru? Because the actual teachers are talking on the
YouTube.
Not YouTube. You paid courses.
Oh yeah. From
Swadhyaya series.
CCMT.
Swadhyaya series.
Yes.
Swadhyaya series, I think they are recorded talks, right? By Swami Advayananda. Am I right?
Yes, that's what he told me. Yeah, yes.
Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya. So Swadhyaya is what? Self-study. So, but there is a question and answer, this thing after that, isn't there not?
Yes.
Swadhyaya, are they sending you questions?
I don't believe, but there's a list of group studies that they have done and the question answer raised, and there is an opportunity for the questions to be sent the person who are moderating.
They will answer the questions. So
Yes.
For the Gita sessions, they do have a question answer session. They send you the questions and you have to answer and send it back to them.
Yes, it is self-assessment is there.
Yeah,
Yes.
assessment
their
is there.
Master Gita, Master Life.
Yeah, MGML it is there. Yeah.
Master Gita, Master Life. Okay.
Not only that one, you have to answer the question, right, and they will send back the correct answers and also point out where you're wrong.
Yeah. Yes.
Correct. So that is good. That is studying.
Okay.
That is studying. Yeah.
So I
Previously,
think what he means is it considered as having a guru? When you said you should have a guru.
Yeah, that one. Yes. Yes. It is definitely considered as a guru. Why? Because you're getting the questions and he's correcting you and you can ask him your doubts.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Okay. Whereas with YouTube or this thing CD, you cannot ask your doubt. It is a lecture that is being recorded and you're listening to it, which is a good thing. Better to listen to that than to watch movies. It's okay, but it cannot fall under Shravanam because there is no questions that can be asked. But this Swadhyaya is, yes, definitely. Because you can ask your doubts, na?
Thank you.
Om Swasti Prajabhyav Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Go Brahmanebhya Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Kale Varshatu Parjanyaha Prithvi Sasya Shalini Desho Yam Kshobarahita Brahmana Santu Nirbhayaha Om Sarvesham Swasti Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadra Pashyantu ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Okay, Hari Om everybody. I'll see you next Friday.